What is going on, y'all? I am KMBest, joined by Lambie Series for the second episode of 8 Cubes. This one's going to be on Lambie's channel, so all of you Lambie viewers, hi to you. Let's jump into our first topic, which is the PC release of Marvel Snap. Quick take, Lambie, what do you think?
Right, so for someone that is very not good with technology and overlays and stuff like that, I love this PC release because it's just huge. It's just big on my screen. The
Yes.
collection is beautiful. I didn't really do much to my setup because there was not much setup to begin with, so it looked
Yes.
really good in my current on my current screen right now. I just had to shift the deck tracker stuff a little bit, but other than that, PC UI was really great. I know they kind of just literally just made the game screen bigger, but
That's all
it's
they
been quite
needed.
helpful.
No, that's
Yeah,
all they
and I
needed.
liked it.
Yes, 100% agree. Absolutely, 100% agree. I made the decision when I first started streaming that I was not going to chop up my thing. I hated it. I
Same,
hated how it looked, and I couldn't make it work whenever I tried. So
same.
I was like, all right, it's just not happening. It's not happening. I'm never going to do it. And I got used to that. People occasionally would ask me to make it bigger, but that just sort of is what it is, right? I'll live,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Chopping it up, just I hated it. I'm glad we don't have to do that anymore. And now I can just put my picture and the deck thing on there, and we are so good to go. Huge fan of the PC release so far. I understand people who look at it and call it minimalist. Sure, I still love it.
It's actually pretty good for streaming, like whether you are
Mhm.
good with overlays or not. Like it's just big enough, right? Oh, and one more thing one thing that's a bit annoying and I'm not used to yet is I don't know how many times you go to the top of your screen to click snap and you realize it's not there. Because I've done that like at least 5 times since the launch and I didn't know why I couldn't snap. And I was like, oh, it's not there.
For
So,
me, it's going to the bottom of my screen to try to undo my action, which happens
oh
when you click the
yeah.
energy. I'm like, oh no, I want to undo this, and then I just click the entire wrong thing and waste time doing that. So there is some muscle memory to undo and rewire. But
Yeah.
overall, verdict on the PC client, I would say thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
Next topic is X23, and I'll be honest with you, I found her to be very mid, like just kind of entirely mid. But I was talking with Moyen, and Moyen has a ton of respect for that deck as long as you're playing against people who are not playing armor. I will also say, when I played a bunch of other decks and kept running into it, one of the things that I noticed was Cosmo is absolutely garbage against it a lot of the time, where armor is incredible. And the reason for this is that you are most of the mid-range decks right now are sort of Angela Kitty oriented, things like that. Maybe you're playing a Forge, maybe you're doing something like that, but you're not going to have priority if they play like a couple reasonable cards early and then blow them up on turn 3. So you're not going to be able to Cosmo them with priority, but you will be able to armor them because Carnage is the only one that costs 2.
Right. So I do agree with you 100% and even a little bit more, which is I think it's mid. I thought it was mid from the start because of the whole armor Cosmo thing. And then when I
Mm-hmm.
played it, I thought it was like mid to actually not good. Because the thing is, what I've realized in the current state of the game, like the decks that you use X23, and it's two things. Firstly, you are ramping up to a lot of floated energy. Like it doesn't always work out. There's a lot of extra energy that you can't use. And there is also like sometimes you just spend your resources to ramp and you ramp into like a Nimrod and you don't have anything else to destroy it with. And then like because so it's a bit annoying because like I did think this card would have a lot of potential. But no, so far it's been very, very mid. And I do agree that Cosmo is not great versus X23 because it's too expensive, firstly. And secondly, X23 can bounce very randomly, so it doesn't really
Yes.
do anything. But yeah, no, I'm not completely given up on the card yet. Just that in my recent testing, I feel like I cannot find anything that's like, okay, so maybe because I'm a perfectionist, like I can find decks with X23 that are fun, but actually super game winning, I can't find anything right now.
I will say, I think that they can occupy a similar spot to like a Living Tribunal deck, where it's like if you don't have the specific tech for this, it can just run you over. And I think that's true of the X23 decks. Like, if you don't have the specific tech to avoid like they are Arnim Zola, their null that they played on turn 5 because X23 accelerated them a little bit. If you don't have the tech to avoid that, I mean, there is something to be said for that actually being quite powerful. Of course, Deadpool Taskmaster is a generally powerful thing to do, but if you are respecting them, and this is sort of why I make the Living Tribunal comparison, which is, if you're respecting them, you should absolutely never lose to them. And if you're running armor and you have like a reasonable plan and you know what to do when you're snapping, you will be in a good spot against those lists. Next up is Silver Samurai, 4 cost, 5 power, and it discards the lowest power card in both your hand and your opponent's hands. What are your thoughts on Silver Samurai's power level and synergies in the current metagame?
So I want to start by saying I read Silver Samurai wrongly the first time. I thought it was like discard the lowest cost card in your hand. I think
Thought it
a
was Black
lot
Bolt.
of people, a lot
Yeah.
of people probably thought the same. But I realized it's discard the lowest power card in your hand. That changes a few things. But my first instinct when it comes to Silver Samurai is I saw that it was 4 costs. So I started thinking about all the Zabu things that I can do. I like being able to play stature without having to play Black Bolt. It's what I can say. Because like Black Bolt is 5/7, but Silver Samurai can be a 3/5, which is huge, right? And then you can still play stature, it's a 1/6. Obviously, you get to discard sometimes you discard your Dark Hawk. If you're playing Iron Man, you discard Iron Man. But like my counter argument is Ghost Rider is also a 4 cost card which can cost 3. I don't know if you can call it copium because I haven't actually played the card yet, but I do think some form of like semi-discard stature Zabu good cards that could be a thing.
My question, I think, at this point is there enough upside in that shell? I know we're going to cover this a bit later, talking about Darkhawk generally, but is there enough upside to like invest in playing weird Darkhawk because of the amount that you can disrupt your opponent's hands? Like how relevant are Silver Samurai and Black Bolt going to be in most games? Like, do you want to play Silver Samurai into Black Bolt? Do you want to really hand attack? You go like Spider Ham, Silver Samurai, Black Bolt? Is that like that's the kind of thing I'm interested in doing because it's an angle we just really haven't gotten to explore yet. There hasn't really been a good way to make a hand attack style deck. But my training in other card games suggests that decks like that often aren't very good. So Silver Samurai is going to be a really interesting card for me.
Yeah, I think just one last point to add on that is that I agree with you that those kind of cards are not really good, like those kind of decks, because they don't actually impact the board state, which is why I feel like it has to be specifically a Zabu shell, right? Because you have to be disrupting the hand and putting stats on the board at the same time. So I'm curious to see how it turns out, but yeah, very interesting card.
Yeah, like there's a line, right? At a certain point, disrupting the hand, if it becomes enough of a free roll, it gets oppressive. But if you're actually paying a cost...
Disrupting it without hassle. Yeah, that's the word.
Yes, it has to be enough of a free roll, right? To be just like, this is also just really good, which is why they tuned Black Bolt and Stature down, right? Because that is exactly the kind of thing you have to worry about is, oh, this hand disruption is actually too free. And when it becomes too free, then it's really overpowering. When it's attached to like really good bodies, then it's a real problem. As is, we'll have to see how good these bodies are. Next up, one of our friends and testing partners won Twitch Rivals with a dominating performance. That is, of course, Moyen. So first up, congratulations to Moyen. And second,
Congrats.
He really had a good take on Patriot with the Brood and Absorbing Man combination. He really, I felt like I've been playing around with that shell a little bit. It was like, oh, this is pretty cool. This is nice. And then it just seems like he took it to a whole nother level. So tell me a little bit about what your thoughts are on Patriot's positioning generally, and we'll go from there.
So the deck he played was built around the core idea of the upgraded Forge with the recent OTA. So it's basically trying to do Forge into Sinister or Brood and into Absorbing Man. It gets you a lot of stats on the board, which sort of makes Enchantress pointless because by the time you actually play an Enchantress, there's a good chance they don't even need to play the Patriot to beat you. So, yeah, the first point I want to make is the Enchantress does not beat this deck at all. It kind of doesn't do anything.
Does nothing.
And one other thing that this deck does very well is that it competes for also unshanchiable stats with the Move Silk deck very, very well. Like, so I literally had this discussion with Moyen a bit ago, like just like 2 minutes of discussion, which is head to head. The Move Silk deck I think is like slightly more consistent than the Patriot Absman Brood deck. We need a name for that, by the way. That
it's
deck when it high rolls,
It's called
Brood Me Dude.
Brood
Okay.
Me Dude. That's what we're calling it.
Okay, Brood Me Dude. Okay, so Brood Me Dude has a higher ceiling than the move deck. And which means if you do not low roll, the Brood deck probably will beat the move deck. And I mean, it also runs Chavez for consistency, which I think is
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, the deck is just a bunch of raw stats which you can there's also a lot of like tech slots, right? Some people I see they run Luke Cage, some Shadow King, some Moyen ran Scarlet Witch. I like Legion in the deck, makes a lot of sense. I've even seen that deck on ladder with Vision as well, just as like an interesting high roll off of Iron Lead. So lots of room for exploration there.
I was really impressed with the inclusion of Legion. I feel like you put Legion in any deck and I'm instantly like, oh, that's such a better deck. It's real now. Like that's the marker of a deck being real. And I do think the Absorbing Man stuff, extremely, extremely powerful. Very, very, very strong card. I'm a big proponent of Absorbing Man right now. I also think we should give a shout out to Alphos, What Am I? They've been working on shells similar to this as well. And one further shout out to you, Lambie Series, because Moyen said he got the idea for watching the deck beat you.
Yes, it did. It did. The deck that beat me was almost exactly the same thing that he brought. I played versions of this deck without Surfer. I was capitalizing on Wave, actually.
Yes.
But I guess Surfer just gives you that extra push, and I do agree that Wave is not super fantastic in the meta right now. So yeah, maybe that Surfer edition just gets you that little bit more points to be sufficient.
So let's talk about the specific matchup of this list into move, right? And so it is competing with the move deck for being unshang-chiable points. It is blanking the fact, because the move deck runs Shang-Chi a lot of the time, it's blanking that card entirely. There is no Enchantress, even if it was good in the move decks right now. And it's just doing more points. It's not even like a question of like when it high rolls, just like most of the time, it is doing more points. So what does that do to move's positioning in the meta?
Right. So I think firstly, I'm going to introduce a counter argument to that. It's that it's only doing more points if you get to do, okay, you don't naturally have to do like Forge Brute Abs, man. But if you can do Brute Abs, man, yeah, then it's already more points. So how often does that happen compared to like the move deck just playing 2-cost card, 2-cost card, Kitty?
Right, but like I mean, it's about the same amount of as like it is for you to get, Angela Kitty, right? And that happens a lot in the move deck, right? Like it happens a lot. Like I think that like the way when I tried to play against this deck as the move deck, I was like, all right, I need to treat this like Mr. Negative, right? I gotta respect their snaps. They're gonna beat me, and then I can snap when they don't do it. And what happened to me was like, oh, I actually just lose when they go like Brute on 4 into Abs Man on 5-2. That actually just beats me. Those are incredibly large numbers regardless.
Okay, you know what? I think I cannot really defend the point because I feel like you might be right. Because like the more I think about it, in my experiences playing against this Brood Me Dude, this Brood Me Dude deck, you are right. Like I feel like my initial stance when I was like talking to Moyen was that like, oh, I think I'm slightly more consistent as the move deck. But the more I think about it, even the low rolls of the Brood deck is not exactly a low roll per se. So yeah, I'm gonna concede this point. I think that the Brood deck might be able to come out on top head to head, like with enough sample size.
I think it would come out on top head to head with enough sample size, because I think the basic thing that'll happen is because it's not even just like, move is here most of the time and then Brood high rolls higher, but is actually here. It's actually like move is here most of the time, Brood high rolls up here, and then when it doesn't high roll, it's like actually still pretty lower, even. Yeah, it's no, like, oh man, that's actually...
There's one point that it's a bit sad to admit this, but it's probably true, and one of the reasons why the Brood deck will be more popular in like maybe 1 or 2 weeks time, which is it is so much simpler to play.
It's so simple. Yes, you don't have to think about anything. Well, you do, but like you don't have to think about Silk.
Yeah, it's so much simpler to play, and it can go bigger. So based on like a general popularity, I do believe this Brood thing will overtake Silk eventually.
Right. Along those lines, one thing that the move deck forced out of the metagame by being a large group of unshang-chiable stats is now getting even more punished by this Brood stuff, and that is Darkhawk. And I will say, I don't think Darkhawk is dead. I think it is fine. But there is a point at which a deck ceases to be like, this is just like, okay, we are 55% against everything. We have a like favorable matchups everywhere. They're not super favorable, but we can play or dip out of them, right? Darkhawk, I think, has crossed that where it's like, all right, we have a bunch of like kind of okay matchups and some not good matchups, and we really need to play or dip out of them. And now it has gone from, in my opinion, being like the class of the meta to being just a deck.
Yeah, the thing about Darkhawk is that like I feel like Darkhawk when Move came around, when I like popularized the deck, it was like literally kicking Darkhawk in the face because like the most number one question I get was like, does this beat Darkhawk? My literal response is this farms Darkhawk. Okay, that's one. Now there's this other deck that also sort of farms Darkhawk, which invalidates their Shang and Enchantress again. So like I don't think Darkhawk is like dead, but it's like I used to call it like low tier 1, but I think now it's actually just tier 2. I think it actually has dropped to tier 2. Because like with Move Silk, with Brood Me Dude, with like, I don't know, just these two decks, even destroy stuff, right? Random destroy stuff. Zabu Darkhawk doesn't deal with all those very well. So I feel like the next iteration of Zabu Darkhawk might be Zabu no Darkhawk, and then we go from there. But I don't actually know what that is yet. We'll see.
Yeah, that isn't. I've thought about cutting Darkhawk before just to remove your own vulnerabilities in mirrors to like things like Shang-Chi and Enchantress. I never ended up getting around to it. It just felt completely insane to me. Next up, the Marvel Snappers Assemble Hong Kong tournament. Both of us will be hosting the English commentary stream for it, so obviously we're looking forward to that. What are you looking forward to the most from that event?
Well, I feel like because I used to travel a lot for like other card games, Hearthstone in particular, I missed going to LAN events so much. Like when I went to the Creator Clash UK, that was one of the most fun times I've had like ever. Like I mean, the competition is great, but meeting people, doing live events, like talking to people about like the thing you love, right, which is Marvel Snap card games, like it's amazing. I missed it so much. I feel like if there is a way for more LAN events to be around, like accessible to people, that would be great. This one was very special to me because this event, even though I did not compete, it's one of the first few that actually has a qualification. Actually, I think it's the first that lets you qualify from online to offline, and it glorifies the common man. Right? Okay, I'm not saying like we are not common, but like it glorifies the people that don't create content. Right, like a friend of ours, Torikun, he made it all the way. Really good player. He doesn't do much content, but he's insane. He's insanely good. So he made it to Hong Kong. This is going to be a spotlight showcase for him and for the other 3 players as well who don't actually stream, I believe. So yeah, we need more opportunities for players that don't do content to be glorified. And that's how you would potentially grow an esports scene. So I'm very optimistic about this.
That's the real thing to me. Like, I'm going to be sleeping in a sleeping bag on an airport floor to make this work. But I feel like it is important to the scene that tournaments like this get off the ground. Like, this is how we build towards something real. And obviously, I've always been a proponent of a rising tide lifts all boats. It's why I'm the way I am about debt credit. It's why I'm doing a show with you. It's why like that's just like this is what I believe. Like this will in some way help everyone, which if it helps everyone, that helps me. And that is what I hope for from this event. So obviously, if you're watching this, please do check it out.
It's gonna happen this weekend. This video will be out before that.
Yeah. So the event itself is going to be on the 27th of August. Of course, time zones depending. Yeah. You'll have to check that out. But we will have some tweets going up about it, so you'll be able to check either of our Twitters to get the full schedule by then. Moving into our final topic, a little bit of an etiquette question. One of my biggest pet peeves with competitive Marvel Snap, and I have ignored this in basically every tournament I've played in because all the tournaments I've played in for the most part have been content creator tournaments, but it is pretty much strictly optimal to wait the entirety of your turn in order to make your opponent have less opportunity to snap you after you've locked in your play, and so you can snap them after they've locked in their play. So the reason for this is that snapping often gives away information. If your opponent is playing Professor X and they snap on turn 5 and you've already locked in a play that loses to a Professor X, that is a really big problem. This is why roping has become a sort of dominant strategy, or at least an optimal one in these tournaments. Roping here used in reference to ropes in games like Hearthstone or Magic Arena that mark the time elapsing in the turn. So, what is your take on roping. Would you do it? Do you do it? What circumstances dictate your choices?
All right, so this is a topic very close to my heart, and like I will try to talk about it as quickly as possible because I can kind of go on forever. But yeah, so firstly, let's just get this out of the way first. I am a huge supporter of roping. So why I'm a huge supporter of roping? Because I've played so many card games before where using the full timer to think, firstly, lets you actually play a bit more optimally. Because sometimes you just rush through your plays, and then when you end your turn, you're like, oh, I could have done the other thing. And you'll be surprised how many times this happens. That is like basic level, number one. And number two, like KM mentioned, which is the whole snap thing. Like when you end your turn and someone snaps you, you have like what, 3 seconds, 4 seconds to actually decide if you want to snap back, you want to stay, why they snap you in the first place. You can't do that in 4 seconds, guys. You can't.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. So as much as, yes, I've played content creator tournaments, I've played non-content creator tournaments, grassroots level stuff as well. Like I try to keep it consistent. Like I don't like rope literally till the end of the rope every single time, but like I try to like use as much time as I can. And if it annoys my opponent, I know I'm not doing it intentionally. I'm actually doing it to think. So yeah, I think it's perfectly fine to use the timer. It's something that should be used more so you don't actually get too hasty.
I think that's actually the key thing that I would like to touch on, which is you should be thinking more than you are. And you being whoever's watching this, you should absolutely be thinking more than you are. And I know that's true because I should be thinking more than I am. You should absolutely be really thinking about this stuff. It is one of my largest flaws as a player that I rush this kind of stuff. You are given a certain amount of time, and you should use that certain amount of time. Where I do think it gets a little iffy is when you start doing it specifically to gain that snap and pressure advantage. I think in that situation, it's like, it's less something I blame you for doing and more something I just wish they would fix. Adding more time on after someone snaps would be a really easy way to do this. It's only ever going to be relevant if someone is like intentionally roping. It's only ever relevant if someone is already doing the bad thing. So I would definitely be in favor of more time after snaps to think. And of course, the ability to undo your turn.
Oh yeah, the undo your turn thing is super important. Like, I think just to add one final point to that is that I agree that because it's sort of in the game as a mechanic, you can't really fault anybody for like,
Correct.
literally roping till the end. But like, I also do agree that like if it can be fixed, yeah, then why not fix it? But like now that it's in the game, I will also openly declare that I do it sometimes because there's a psychological advantage to it. But yeah, if they can fix
Admitted
it,
roper, Lambie.
I'm a roper. I'm a dirty roper, also sometimes a dirty net decker, but yeah, that's where all the ideas come from anyway.
God. All right, on that note, it is time to end. If you enjoyed this episode of 8 Cubes, I have been KMBest, but this is Lambie Series' channel. Hit those buttons down there, or the buttons up there. I don't know where I am relative to the buttons where we're speaking here. Follow, like, subscribe, turn notifications on for our boy, Lambie Series. Did you see me like almost point the wrong direction? I definitely almost pointed the wrong direction.
I did. All right, guys, it's a new channel. It's a new channel, so we need all the support we can get. So thank you so much for supporting when you do support. Thank you. Bye-bye, guys.
Do more. Tell them more. Tell them why you're the best. Tell them why you're the best.
Go. Oh, I'm also the best because I won a trophy. Okay, no, that's obviously not the reason why I'm the best, but like, I have
that's
a trophy.
How we're ending it.
I have a trophy. I have a trophy. All right, that's it.